You're listening to Oppositional Forces. Bad guys for good reasons. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Oppositional Forces. I am your host, Scotty Don't. With me today is the ever-growing Jotun of the Frozen North, Mr. Frost. Say hi.
What's up?
And today we have a very special episode. It's our first interview, and today we have a very secretive bad guy for a good reason, and we're going to bring him on here in a second. Henry, as he is known to the more seedy elements where he is from, was an undercover agent of law enforcement. And so we're going to bring him in today and talk to him about what he's done, how it works. And without further ado, what's up, Henry?
Hey, how's it going, man?
Good, brother. How are you feeling?
Not bad, not bad. How about you?
Hey, it's the holiday season, so we're in full swing now, full stress mode. Yeah. Still trying to figure out what to get all the peeps for Christmas. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Henry, I'm not gonna try to dig too much past the surface, but if you can, give me a little bit of an insight on kind of not the who you are, but the what you are.
What I am. Okay. So I started about 15 years ago into law enforcement. Started with a larger department, went to a county sheriff's office, and then from there I went to another city department. When I was at that city department, I got selected for the strike force for our area. The agreement was I would do at least 5 years, which I did it over 5 years up at the strike force is what we call it here. While I was up at the strike force, because of my ethnicity, I was easier to infiltrate criminal organizations, and that's what I did for probably about 5 years. I was just doing straight undercover work. Worked with all the alphabets except the ATF. I never worked with them, but DEA, FBI, did a couple things with them. I say a couple. I did a lot of stuff with the FBI. Worked my way up when I was with the strike force, actually. So I went from, just a regular agent to senior agent. And from there I went to supervisor. So I was helping running the show for the last 2 years of my career up there.
That's incredible. That's a long time to be, in the undercover world, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But I did enjoy it. I probably have close to about 275, 300 undercover operations under my belt.
Wow.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
What kind of, just to give people like a perspective, because I understand what that means when you say that, but what goes in
each individual operation? So that's when I go under the ruse of basically being a scumbag and infiltrating somebody. Either that's buying narcotics, firearms. At one point I bought 23 illegal firearms from somebody on top of narcotics. But when I say 275 to 300, that's each individual op. I've even done undercover operations where I was in a jail cell with a murder suspect trying to get him to confess.
So you got plugged into the system.
I was plugged into the system legitimately.
He got papers.
I do. I had fake IDs, fake visas, and I did have a fake criminal history.
So from what I know, which is, just kind of the surface of how the internal workings of prison are, I mean, did you have enough on you that if somebody quote unquote pulled your papers, that
Yeah, absolutely.
they would
I was
stick?
never at the prison though. It was only at the jail. What had happened was they had a homicide suspect they had taken into custody, and they reached out to us. It was actually not even our jurisdiction. It was another jurisdiction reached out to us and said, "Hey, is your guy willing to go in and be in the jail for a little bit and see if we can get this guy to talk about the homicide he committed, allegedly."
Wow. And how long did you have to bunk with him for that to see itself through?
It was only a couple days, and I got enough. I never had a wire on me. They had bugged the cell prior to putting us both in there. Fortunately, I was able to basically bullshit my way with this guy to where he built trust and confidence with me, and he slipped up a couple times, and that's all we needed. And they switched, they quote unquote rolled me out, put me out in another unit, but I just got kicked out the back door, and I was back to work.
Wow. That's intense.
Yeah, it was fun. Yeah, different experience, that's for sure.
That's got to be a hard one, sitting there staring across the little 6-foot room at somebody that, allegedly just, committed a pretty heinous act.
Yes and no. I mean, he was nothing, honestly. He was just this little gangbanger. I mean, I wasn't intimidated by him. They monitored it the entire time I was in there. Obviously, if I needed something, they would come in and save the day, but that never happened.
Wow. So if I can, what is it that really got you interested in putting your hand up for getting into this side of law enforcement?
I wanted to do it for two major reasons. The biggest reason was I wanted to be able to dress in normal clothes. You see those things in movies and stuff like that, and it's true. I mean, if I sat here and told you I became a cop because, I wanted to help people, and I'm not saying I don't like helping people, but that's not why I became a cop. I became a cop because I enjoy the adrenaline rush, right? And I like getting into shit, right?
That's the best kind of bad guy for good reasons.
Exactly, and there's no better way to get into shit than to be, quote unquote, a bad guy, right?
Oh, exactly. I mean, I can only imagine, with Mr. Frost and I, we like what we do because there's a lot of people that are just too squeamish to do it, and they can want to help and, be, a savior in society, or, whatever you want to call it. But, I mean, there's a lot there that it's more or less, can you stomach it?
Yeah, and I love the adrenaline rush. I love going into situations and portraying myself as something I'm truly not, but being able to convince these people that I am who I say I am. It's a blast. It's a rush. You'll never get a better high.
Yeah, and I can imagine because the stakes are so high being made.
The stakes are extremely high. I mean, a lot of times when I'm dealing with these guys, I mean, obviously I'm armed. But a lot of times so are they, so it's one of those, you gotta keep your head on a swivel the entire time. I'm 99% of the time I was in those situations on my own. And so you had to be really good at reading body language, watching hands, X, Y, and Z, all the while just playing it cool like you're not a cop.
Just got to be a cold fish about it, huh?
You do. It's almost like, and I think when I started getting better at it was when I started believing what I was trying to portray, convincing myself that this is who I am. And it would project in those situations where I was never questioned. Man, not once did somebody question me or even the bullshit, are you a cop? I've never been asked that.
Really?
And I looked a lot different. I mean, you remember when I was back doing that stuff, man. I had long ass hair. I had the goatee. I had my ears pierced and stuff like that. But I could hang with the white boys. I could go with the Chicanos. The brothers didn't have any problems with me. And a lot of it's because I didn't look like you. No offense.
None taken.
But they see a white guy with a beard, they automatically think top.
Yeah, and see, that's the hardest thing for me is oftentimes, just walking into a room and finding myself in, something that's a little seedy, and everybody looks up at me and says, regardless of, being a pretty big guy and, long beard and the hair's getting longer too, people look at me like, dude, you look like a cop.
Narco.
Yeah. No, I'm telling you right now, not one white guy in my entire strike force did undercover work that looked like you. If you had a beard and you had like shaggy looking hair, you ain't doing undercover work because you look like the cliche 2000 plus, 2020 narc. You do. It's because all these guys that I work with, I mean, that's why, my opinion, a lot of the guys wanted to go and do undercover work so they could, grow the hair out, grow the beard out, basically look like they're not a cop.
Yeah.
It never worked. Mexicans wouldn't fuck with them. And nobody would. So, anyways, I kind of went on a kick.
No, I mean, that's
for a sec. Sorry, man.
No, that's good stuff. Like, because
it's true.
The criminal world is a racist place.
It 100% is. Like how you dress, and you scream cop to me. Like if I was a bad guy and I see you sitting even in the same restaurant as me, I'm going to look at you and I'm like, oh, okay, I got this one pegged. Especially if you look at me more than 3 times, I know for a fact you're watching me.
Yeah, see, and that's my fatal flaw is I watch everyone all the time, so I'm probably just like a giant beacon.
And so did I, but I never locked eyes. I would do the pass over with my eyes and look like I'm looking at somebody else, or things like that. If a woman was walking by, I'd take that opportunity to follow her with my eyes, catch the suspect, and I never got called out.
Yeah, getting made, I'm sure, would be probably the worst thing for you in any situation, even just, on the...
No, I mean, the worst situation, I think, is getting robbed, because a lot of these times I was doing deals. I wasn't doing like, 8 balls or ounce deals. I'd say probably 80% of the time I was doing pound level deals, pounds, when I say pound. So 5 pounds, 10 pounds. I think the most I did was 55 pounds. And we're talking meth. We didn't fuck with marijuana. We didn't give a shit about that. We were focused on fentanyl, meth, heroin.
Yeah, you got to get the big stuff, right?
Right.
You're not trying to ruin the day for, the average college student who's waiting for his hookup on some broccoli.
We didn't give a shit about that, man. And I'm not saying that that's everywhere. I'm sure there's some task force and strike forces that they focus on marijuana. We didn't have time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you got bigger fish to fry when, just even the littlest bit of fentanyl out there is, killing people every day.
Right.
Yeah, that's crazy. So like what would a typical day look like for you? Was it every day, like trying to get in there and make those buys, or, how much buildup is there?
I wouldn't say every day. I'd say probably once, twice a week I would do that. And just because I was undercover didn't mean I didn't have a caseload. I wasn't working, informants and doing all that stuff. I mean, I had my cases. I was still working on top of doing undercover work, on top of managing informants. And so I'd say twice a week I would do an undercover op. And then the rest of the time, I'm doing my own stuff. We did wiretaps, Title III wiretaps on, I don't even know how many occasions, man. Those were pretty exhausting. That's a lot of work that goes into that. But I mean, a given day, every day we're buying something, right? Buying a gun, buying stolen guns, buying Meth, heroin. Fentanyl wasn't as much. We did a lot of meth, a lot of heroin purchases.
I could see that happening when you're trying to find the bigger fish. You have to deal with the smaller fish to find that bigger fish.
Right, and we did. We worked up the chain, right? Yeah, I mean, if we knew somebody that was pushing, say, ounces of meth, that's who we're going to focus on. And we jam them up, and tell them, hey, you want to help yourself out? Yeah, no. If they did, it'd be like, okay, cool. You're going to introduce me to this guy. And they would. So, and when I say we work informants, obviously, I don't know if this is a well-known thing, but when we work people, they're working off charges, right? So they get jammed up for a felony. We can help them out with that. I mean, we can kind of be the middleman with the prosecutor, get them a good plea deal, maybe even get things dismissed. And so they had a lot to lose by not cooperating. I'll tell you right now, 90% of the time they cooperate.
Snitches.
It's stitches.
100%. But you know what? I tell them, I mean, these people don't give a shit about you. Why would you give a shit about them? You got a lot to lose. You're talking about a 0 to 5 or depending on their criminal history. I mean, fuck, I put people away for pushing dope for 45 years.
That's some heavy
Obviously
charges.
went to the federal level. Yeah. Well, that went federal, so they got indicted. And it was more than just dope. I mean, there was guns. There was a couple overdoses they were able to connect to that person. So 45 years. And when you do Fed time, that's minimum mandatory. Wow. There's no good time.
Yeah, that's deep time.
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, guys have a lot to lose, right? So, yeah.
So, what sticks out most to you, when people bring up your time in Undercover? Like, I guess if you had like a glimpse moment when people remind you, like, oh yeah, when you're doing your stuff, like maybe not like a particular event or any one like solid thing, but I mean, what flashes across your mind when you think about all those experiences?
What flashes across my mind. So this is actually a pretty cool story, and it might take a minute for me to explain it. So I hope you have time.
We got nothing but time.
So I was in the strike force for about a year, and I get a phone call from a close friend of mine, and they're like, "Hey, man, I know you're an undercover cop. You're doing this, this, and this." I'm like, "Yeah, what's up?" And they're like, "Well, I got a really good family. I got a family member they're caught up in some stuff, and they don't know what to do. Can you talk to them?" And I was like, "Yeah, absolutely, right? Cool." I told them, tell her to give me a phone call. So I give them the phone number, and they're like, "Okay, Not even 15, 20 minutes later, I get on the phone with this girl. She's pretty scared, right? And I'm like, "Hey, what's up? This is Henry. What can I do for you?" She's like, she's pretty standoffish. She's like, "Well, I don't know. I don't know if I need help." I'm like, "Well, so-and-so said, you wanted to talk to me. What do you got?" She's like, I don't want to incriminate myself." I'm like, "Look, you're not going to incriminate yourself. Are you talking about murder?" She's like, "Well, not me directly, but maybe eventually." I was like, "Okay, what are you talking about?" She's like, "Well, I sell drugs." I was like, "Okay, what kind of drugs?" She's like, "You name it." I was like, "Okay, so what do you sell?" She's like, "Meth, heroin, cocaine." It's like, "Okay." She's like, "But I don't know if I want to talk to you." I was like, "Well, you want to think it over for a little bit?" She's like, "Yeah." Okay. I hang up the phone. 2-3 hours passes. She calls me back. She's like, "You know what? I do want to talk to you." She's like, "But you promised me you'll help me." And I was like, "Yeah, I can help you." I mean, I don't even have anything on this chick, right? At this point, she's just telling me, "Hey, I'm a criminal." I don't have a case on her. I don't even know who she is. So I was like, "Hey, why don't we meet up? Let's meet up." let's talk about it. And she's like, okay. She's like, but I'm not in the state. I was like, oh, okay. Well, where are you? She's like, well, I'm down on the border. And I was like, oh shit. Okay. I was like, well, why are you down on the border? She's like, I'm picking up a load with my boyfriend right now. It's like, okay. She's like, but me and him got into it. I left the hotel, and I'm going to get on a flight. I was like, you're going to get on a flight right now, and you're coming back to the States? She's like, yeah. It's like, okay. Do you want to meet up when you get back? Yes. Perfect. So I call up my buddy, because anytime we meet with people, we always go in twos. We just always do, especially with females, right? We don't want false allegations, things like this. So I call up my buddy Mikey, and I'm like, hey, man, I got this chick. She wants to meet up with us. He's like, okay. So we mob down close to the airport, and I'm calling her. She's not answering. I'm like, God damn it, you know. She blew me off, which is typical sometimes. Anyways, we're about ready to leave. She calls. She's like, hey, I'm in this parking lot. It's like, okay, what car are you in? She tells me. So we meet up with her, and this is the first time I've ever met her. I'm like, hey, what's up? I'm Henry. She introduces herself. She starts laying out the story. She's like, okay, here's the deal. Me and my boyfriend, we've been together for 5 years, and we run guns down to Mexico, and we run dope back up to here. It's like, okay, how much? She's like, you know, she start laying it out. Like, and I'm sitting there at the time, I'm thinking, I'm really hesitant to believe this girl, right? She's like, well, probably about 50 pounds of meth at a time, you know, about 14 keys of heroin, and
Jesus,
probably
Christ.
five, six keys of coke. And I was like, okay, how often are you doing this? She's like, I don't know, like once, twice a week. I'm like, oh shit, okay. I'm like, well, at this point, this is kind of big case, and it's interstate, right? She's going down to the border, she's picking dope up, blah blah blah. Long story short, she ends up working with us, and the feds at first, when we sat down and started debriefing her, they're like, yeah, we have a hard time believing it, right? So she flips on boyfriend. Come to find out, she flipped on boyfriend because he's a piece of shit and he was cheating on her, right? And hell have no fury like a scorned woman, right?
She's going to burn a whole operation to the ground because he couldn't keep it to himself.
Oh, and she did. And, you know, we got so I can't even think of how many firearms, and I'm talking like legit firearms. I'm not talking about just normal people average day. No, most of these firearms were either stolen or had obliterated serial numbers. One we linked to a homicide up in Chicago. Shocking, right? Anyways, so going back to her, she brought a bunch of drugs, and when I say a bunch, I mean a bunch. And she was just ruthless, in a good way though. She had a heart, and you know, after that first operation, I was working with her. And keep in mind, I don't have anything on this girl. She's working out of the kindness of her heart, and obviously she was compensated financially at the end of it. But she was moving so much stuff. It was mind blowing, and she educated me so much about how cartel operations were going. She was linked in with Sinaloa drug cartel.
Wow.
And when I say LinkedIn, man, she was LinkedIn. And I didn't believe her at first, but the best part is when she would go down to Mexico and party with true narcos and things like that. I mean, they're just like us, right? We go to parties, we take pictures, blah, blah, blah. And she showed me all these pictures, man. And I'm talking, these dudes are just standing around dope. They're standing around AKs, all this stuff. You know, they have Santa Muertas hanging around their neck. Turns out she's a straight mercenary. Amazing woman, too. And that was the highlight of my career, is working with her. We did, after that first operation, man, and I can't even tell you. I'm guessing probably around 250, 300 pounds of meth and close to about 60, 70 keys of heroin and I think 25 keys of coke. Not to mention we seized a shitload of money. probably around $500,000 out of her boyfriend's place, bunch of stuff. And so that was the first op I worked for. And, after that, I was like, hey, just so you know, obviously this is going to go to court. And if it does, are you going to be willing to testify? She's like, oh, man, I don't know. She's like, if I keep working for you guys and I keep bringing these things to you, do I have to testify still? No, actually, because if we have active investigations that you're vested in, we don't want to reveal you, obviously. So she's like, okay. And 2-3 weeks later, after we take this huge operation down that her boyfriend was involved in, she calls me up. She's like, hey, I got another one for you. I was like, oh, okay. So we take that one down. Bam. Bunch of dope, bunch of guns, indicted like, I think 9 or 10 people. Shortly after that one, same thing. She's like, hey, I can call up this guy. He's down in San Diego. He's on the border of TJ, and he can just at the drop of a hat roll up with 50 pounds of meth. You want it? I'm like, fuck yeah, let's do it. Sure as shit. She calls up, orders up, and it's there the next day. We jack it. We indict those guys. And I mean, she's just going. And all this time, I've actually began to really like her. She's just an amazing woman. When I say like, she was a good friend. And I got to know her really well. I knew about her, her family, things like that. I never revealed, obviously, my personal life too much to her because even though I trusted her with the operations, I obviously still have to separate those two things. Another thing with this girl, so with the narcos, they actually have like basic training style things down in Mexico where individuals that are doing these types of things go and get trained on interrogation, get trained on surveillance, counter surveillance. I mean, it's very intricate. And she was well trained. Like she knew about tracking devices that, cops put on cars. She knew about more stuff than even I did at the time. I mean, she really educated me. I mean, she knew we listened to phone calls. She knew all of that. And that's why she's like, yeah, that's why we never talk over the phone. We always use, encrypted apps, WhatsApp or something along those lines to any time they communicated about dope. And that's how they stayed off the radar for so long. Amazing woman. So we take our last case, one of the last cases we worked together. It was kind of funny. She calls, orders up some dope. She's like, hey, it's going to be here tomorrow. I don't know who the runner is, but it's going to be here tomorrow. I was like, okay, it's where, she's like, it's going to be at this auto shop. Okay. So I get the boys ready. And, we get all full kitted up and I tell her, I'm like, hey, just so you know, when you go in there and you give the bus signal, like we're coming in guns blazing. She's like, I know. It's like, okay. I was like, you trust me? She's like, yeah, 100%. I trust you. It's like, okay. Cause we're going to make you look like a bad guy too. So we don't burn you. She's like, okay, I'm good with that. Okay. So we load up in the raid van. We sit around the corner. We're listening to Bug, basically the audio of the whole deal, and she gets the bus signal, basically confirming that the load's there. Like, all right, let's do this, So we come hauling ass around the corner in the raid van, right? And it's this industrial area where it's just a bunch of garage doors, And so we come hauling ass around the corner. Everybody floods out of the van, stacks up. And we just advance on the subjects. I think there was about 8 or 9 of them, including her. But she was my primary focus because obviously I was security for her. But I come around the corner, I got to have my M4 up and I'm just yelling at her. I'm just like, get on the fucking ground, bitch. And she gets down on the ground. She complies. We cuff her up. We haul her off. And I'm sitting there. I was like, good job. She's like, was your gun loaded? I'm like, yeah, it was fucking loaded. She's like, Jesus Christ, Henry, I didn't know you were going to point a fucking loaded gun at me. I was like, I had to make it look believable. I was like, you said you trusted me. She's like, all right, true. So we actually developed a really good working relationship. I actually started doing undercover operations with her, going and meeting with narcos, and we traveled all over the southern states. Eventually, she had such a good reputation with the FBI and DEA that they cross-deputized us to be task force officers. Basically, we were under the DOJ umbrella, meaning we were, basically just pimped out to FBI. And so we got to go in their state. We did a lot of investigations, obviously, down on the border near Nogales, down by TJ in San Diego, a lot of things in Arizona, obviously. But when I talk about my strike force career, it was definitely made because of that woman. She was an amazing woman.
All of that.
And I have tons of stories with her, man. We had a blast. It was funny. And just to kind of paint a picture of her, she took care of herself. She doesn't use dope. Very clean, like really, really bubbly personality. But I'm talking full sleeves of tattoos, and she was Latino, and you look at her and it's like, man, you don't want to fuck with this girl. You do not want to fuck with her. But sweetest girl.
Wow. All of that from a phone call with
all of that,
some concerned family.
No, she was definitely the career maker, and I 100% it was her, and knowing her, she did tons of things, and she did a lot of good. And we had some pretty honest conversations. At one point, she's like, man, I think I'm doing this just to kind of get the guilt of all the overdose deaths that I may have been involved in from all the dope I pushed over the years. And it's no exaggeration where she was bringing up that much dope and sending that many guns down to Mexico. And she wasn't doing it single-handedly. Obviously, she had the help of her boyfriend. And the guy was a piece of shit. I think he manipulated her into doing it, but man, she was good. And she spoke crystal clear English and crystal clear Spanish. Like, she could flip back and forth. We did one operation where there was this Mexican restaurant. This was probably my favorite, right? Because dude running a Mexican restaurant, pushing dope out the back door, also had an illegal gambling ring upstairs, whatever. So she's like, hey, I know this guy. Let's go buy some dope. I was like, okay, cool. So we go down, we go to the restaurant, and I don't speak Spanish, even though I look like I should. I don't. So we go in the restaurant. She's talking to him in Spanish. He's really friendly. Oh, have a seat, She tells him why we're there. And he's like, okay, He's like, what do you guys want to eat? And so we sat down and we ate some of the best Mexican food I've ever had. Oh my God. So we sit, we stuff our face. She's like, oh, try this, blah, blah, blah. So we sit there and eat. And she's like, oh, do you want that? And I was like, yeah, let me get that. Meaning the dope. So she's like, okay, let me see the money. So I pull, 3 stacks out of my pocket and put it on the table, and she slides it over to him. He takes it, goes in the bag, comes out with a styrofoam container. I take that, put it in the bag. We bounce out of there, and we bought 2 pounds of meth. Sorry, I should have said that. So we bounce out of there. We roll back and got 2 pounds of next to my to-go food. And so we did that. Yeah. No, we did that quite a few times. Eventually, he trusted me enough that I wouldn't go with her if she wasn't able to go. And then I'd go upstairs, and do the illegal gambling things because the FBI was interested in that. And they had legit gambling upstairs. It was, they had blackjack, roulette. I mean, they had the slots against the walls.
They give you money to play with?
Yeah. And guys were up there obviously using dope and partying up there. So
That's some like
But that
Casino
was a fun
Royale
one,
shit
man.
right there.
I feel like you're explaining
really
part of
was.
my homelessness when I was younger.
Yeah. But so she was a good person, and she had a lot of guilt from all that, and I get it. You know, we worked a few cases, and I'm not going to sit here and just basically say we caused it, but there was a few cases that at the end of the cases, when everything came down, shortly after, people were murdered, unfortunately. Can I sit here and say that that was caused directly by our actions? No. Can I sit here and say we didn't have a play in that? No. If my honest opinion is because how we did things and how we disrupted those organizations, people lost their lives, and she did know about that, and she had guilt about it, and I get it. Me personally, I didn't have guilt about it because they're pieces of shit. I'll just say it. So I don't have guilt. Non-contributing members of society is how I saw them. The system didn't clean it up, so fortunately the streets did.
Well, I mean, if it's not you pulling it off, you know, somebody else pulls it off, and you know that's often, at least from what I understand, that's the penalty for losing, you know, big money or big
Right.
product.
And 100%. And it happens more down in Mexico than it does up north. They don't, you know, when it comes to the cartels, they won't step on law enforcement dicks. They really won't. They will not, if they can help it, harm a law enforcement officer pushing dope. And to be honest with you, most of the legit drug pushers, you know, the Pisces, the countrymen, they're just hardworking, you know, Mexicans. I mean, they're actually really good people. They just sell dope, but then they sell dope to the gangbangers, you know, and those are the pieces of shit we saw, you know, fortunately lose their life. I was going to say unfortunately, but I had zero remorse for them. But she had some guilt about that. Long story short, I retired her after I had left. I was like, hey, I'm done. And I don't think, you know, you want to keep going. Mainly because I didn't want to hand her over to work with somebody else that I didn't trust. You know, so she retired.
Well, yeah, I mean, you've got to look out for somebody who puts the work in like that, you know, because ultimately at the end of the day, like you said, like, you know, you're running security for her, you know, essentially during these things. So, you know, I can imagine you felt like a sense of, you know, responsibility to her. Does that kind of describe it?
Absolutely. You know, that's probably the only informant that I worked with that I was concerned for it. And that sounds fucked up, I know. Most of the people I worked with, it's like, man, you're a piece of shit. I never had that opinion of her. She wasn't a piece of shit. She made honest mistakes, and she redeemed herself because she helped put a huge impact on fentanyl especially. She had a huge impact, and she probably saved countless lives with the amount of fentanyl we were able to seize based off of her information and her willingness to go after these guys.
Damn. I thought we were going to talk about like some drugs and hookers and guns. And I mean, we got like a full redemption story, dude. That's
dope.
It's incredible.
Yeah, like, I mean, all the way around.
And I'm not going to name her, and I'm going to end it with this. When it comes to her, we'll go off on something. And it sucks because it's going to be burned in my head for the rest of my life, unfortunately, because it happened on my birthday. But this woman, beautiful, beautiful soul, took her life on my birthday. And I found out about it, and I was like, just fuck my birthday up. And I'm not mad at her for anything for it. I was just like heartbroken. I was like, damn, she was a great person. She turned her life around, and I I'm not going to say that living that lifestyle for her for so long and having that guilt on her conscience contributed, but I wouldn't be surprised if it did.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's hard to know, how someone gets there, because everybody's story is a little different. There's a thousand different ways, that that haunts people and eventually, wins, unfortunately. But yeah,
Yep.
I can only imagine,
absolutely.
the demons that you have to have from the get-go to be, manipulated and groomed, by somebody for it, at that point to become a good idea or a good enough idea to go along with moving guns and drugs and partying with narcos.
Yeah. No, it was definitely a hell of a ride, while it lasted. And we stayed in touch even after I had left the strike force and she retired. I'd hit her up, see how she was doing. We actually had a discussion. It was like, hey, we've got some pretty good stories. Like, we ought to train law enforcement, things like that. It's funny because I was telling you about this just the other week when you brought up doing this podcast. So after she had taken her life, the U.S. attorney that was working cases with us called me. He was like, hey, man, I don't know if you heard, but, she took her own life. And I was like, yeah, I did. And he's like, wow, he's devastated. And this man's a brilliant man. I mean, when I say U.S. attorney, I used to joke and call him Harvard because he legitimately went to Harvard, well educated. He was amazed by this woman's story. And he's like, hey, man, Henry, I got a serious question for you. I was like, what's up? He's like, since she's passed away, we can kind of talk about these things freely. And, I think I'm going to write a book. He's like, would you help me? And I was like, yeah. So he actually just started last week on the book he wants to write about her and basically everything that, he knows and that I know. Whether it finishes and it publishes, I don't know. It'll be cool if it did. I better get royalties,
right. Just hearing your stories is like, oh, that's dope. No matter what.
Oh, man. Hey, I'll tell you what, man. That was the highlight of my career, like I said. But there were so many other things. I sit here sometimes, I'll chop it up with some of the guys at work now, and it's like I'll remember things I've done. I'm like, oh shit, God, I mean, we worked a lot of things. I'm not going to say the agencies just because I don't want to get them in trouble, but I mean, we had so many assets at our disposal. I mean, I can't think of how many times I'm riding on the skids of a helicopter, just flying, watching people from the sky. I mean, we had cameras capable of, surveillance from 2.5 miles away or on vehicles while they're moving around, pushing dope, pushing guns. I mean, we caught a drive-by at one point when we were up conducting surveillance in this helicopter. When I say this helicopter, this thing's amazing. It's an expensive bird. We're not talking about some shitty-ass, Black Hawk. We're talking like
ass Black Hawk.
Stupid Army and their Black Hawks.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Although we did have a Black Hawk we did use. It didn't touch what we had though. The capabilities some of these entities have, it was mind blowing. So, but I mean, it was a hell of a ride doing that stuff. And like I said, I don't think I'd have half the stories I have now without that woman. And we had, I could think of countless times, we're in another state and it's like, we got to babysit this woman. It's like, get her hotel room, me and the guys get in our hotel room, and we just sat and waited. We'd sometimes wait 2 weeks for the load so that we could quote unquote bring it back up. So we spent a lot of time, and I'm not the only one that, started considering her a friend. Like I said, the other guy I worked with, Mikey, he grew fond of her. In fact, I called him when all that happened, broke the news, and he's a crusty motherfucker. Like, this guy is just no fucking heart, right? He's just an asshole. But he's one of those assholes you gotta love. But I broke the news to him, and his voice was cracking on the phone. So she definitely had a positive impact on a lot of guys. I mean, she was famous. Like, she was famous in the community that I was working in. And I'm not saying just local. I'm talking about the entire state into other states.
Well, yeah, to have that kind of clout and to be able to keep
100%.
keep how she was still rolling. You know what I mean? That's the cool thing about it is she was like, oh, I set up this deal and I got busted and it looks like I'm getting busted, and you lay low for a couple of months and then all of a sudden you're right back at it. It's like, oh, I'm OG. You know what I mean? Like, I'm still gonna run and gun, and we're still gonna roll this dope out.
Yeah, no, it was pretty intense, but we did a lot together. I did a lot of other operations without her, just for other guys' cases. Because, like I said, I was like, without stroking my own dick. Can I say that on your podcast? I'm
Too late.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, blur that out if you have to.
No, there's an explicit symbol on the podcast for a reason. Everybody knows what the story is.
Yeah.
All right. Well, without stroking my own cock, I was the go-to for Undercover for our strike force, our task force, for 5 years. I didn't start doing it obviously right out the gate, right? It wasn't like day one, I'm just getting thrown into this shit. I had to go to schools. I had to go to trainings and things like that, which, to be honest with you, were all bullshit. And I know this is going to hurt you guys' feelings. Maybe not. I don't know. But there's no true training like actually getting into this shit and experiencing it. You can sit there and read fucking books. You can watch videos. You can listen to somebody's lecture all fucking day. But until you get into it, you will not become proficient.
You mean that Vice documentary that I watched on Netflix? Like, didn't tell me the whole story?
No.
Well,
unfortunately not.
See, that's why I like training and I love sharing my information, but the way that I grew up and the atmosphere that I was in, like, I totally can understand where you're coming from with that. Like,
yeah,
I definitely, I understand that, living on the streets, I know what to look for. I know who to talk to. You know what I mean? It's one of those things. It's not like, oh, you can go talk to somebody and be like, oh, I hung out with a homeless dude and he gave me a bunch of information. No, I'll take you to the Lion's Den and tell you where to go and who to talk to and who the gatekeeper is.
Yeah, exactly. You can sit here and role play all day, but until you're in it, man, I see guys that go through scenario-based trainings and they fucking kill it, right? But then they get put in that situation in real life and they just fucking vapor lock.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's a scary situation. I mean, you get amped up, and I'm surprised you're not on a ventilator half the time and some serious blood pressure meds and still running and gunning like you are. I mean, that's an adrenaline rush in itself.
It definitely was, man. Guys have tried to rob me before when I'd go buy dope. Obviously, that doesn't work out for them. We handle it. But it's one of those things, though, man. It's like once you get that adrenaline rush, I don't know your guys' background all that well, but I've been shot at, and it's still doing that type of stuff is a better adrenaline rush than that.
Even better, huh?
That's a pretty serious drug right there, man. I'm just saying.
You've pasted a smile on Mr. Frost's face that will not leave tonight. He's touching himself.
Yeah, I will be touching myself later. You
cannot, and I can sit here and honestly compare it. And I'm telling you right now, it's tenfold that. You can't even understand it. Until you're in that situation. It's like, I sit there now because, I went back. I'm just a fucking beat cop now. And it's like, fuck, man. I should have, tried to stick it out longer, asked them to extend me, blah, blah, blah. But it is what it is. I'll never get another high like those highs I've had in my life, unfortunately.
Well, if we get a chance,
God knows what I go do.
when you finally hit your retirement package on the Chief's desk, like I fully expect that you're going to get wrapped up in all of this with us. Feel me?
Yeah.
We'll do some weird stuff together.
We may be in Belize, but or
hey man, I'm
Brazil,
telling you right now.
I'm just saying.
You better work on your Espanol.
I cracked a joke with the commander one time. I was like, man, if I ever, go rogue after I retire and flip teams, it's like, you can't be mad at me because you guys created this monster.
Oh, what's the name of that movie? Like Salt and Sea or whatever. Do you know which one I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what that reminds me of.
Yeah, you created the monster, man. Deal with it. No, I won't do that. But yeah, it's definitely, it was a hell of a ride, man. Like I said, it was cool when when the feds get involved, it gets really interesting. When I say really interesting, I mean you're working with guys that are retired Delta, retired SF, MARSOC. I mean, legit dudes, and you're just like, man, why the fuck am I sitting here with this dude?
I can feel that.
Yeah,
I totally feel that.
You know what I mean? You almost feel inadequate until you continue to work with these guys, and you're just like, no, this guy's not that good.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. Or they're looking at you in the same way of like, they're looking at you
and
like, hey man, you're so awesome. And you're like, what?
Yeah. What? I'll tell you. And that's, yeah, you want to talk about fucking stroking your ego is when you have some dude that was Delta Forces for, 20 years and he's sitting here going like, this motherfucker's the shit. It's like, oh, you'd start giggling like a little schoolgirl. Oh,
right.
Thanks. Getting all shy, blushing in front of everybody. But dude, I've gotten like letters from, the U.S. attorney for our area saying, awesome work. I still have them. I hang them up on my wall with all my awards and shit, but just awesome work. This case is amazing. Things like that. It's pretty cool.
That's awesome. Hey,
yep.
Shifting gears a little bit here. I wanted to kind of get your take on something that's kind of contemporary. We hear a lot in the news these days, that crime's up, everything's going to hell in a handbasket. What's the current climate, like criminal climate, like where you're at? Is it picking up? Is it bigger deals, bigger problems, or is a lot of this just the news hyping it up?
No, it is not the news hyping it up. So the city I currently work for in the state, I want to say it's like the 6th most dangerous. In the county it's actually in, it's the 2nd most dangerous. And over the past, I would say honestly, 6 years, you definitely start seeing a lot more violent crimes, a lot more criminals that just don't give a shit. And it's scary. And when I say they don't give a shit, they do not give a shit. They don't give a shit if the cops get called. They do not care. And part of it is the media and how they portray us. And that has that knee-jerk reaction with the administrations to where they're like, oh, well, we can't do this anymore, right? We don't want bad publicity. You guys can't chase suspects down in your cars unless it's this, and this. When I first started, man, if I went to stop a car and it ran from me, I'm chasing the motherfucker until the wheels fall off or they crash. Now, man, I can't chase somebody unless it's, a violent felony. And even then, if it starts getting hairy, I got to terminate. It doesn't matter. And these criminals know this. So what do they got to do if they're committing these acts, burglaries, X, Y, and Z? Run from you. They know if they keep running fast enough and long enough that you can't keep going.
So sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but
No, go ahead.
Out of curiosity, would you, as an officer of the law, promote the public, as John Q. Public, to actually get more educated with carrying a firearm and being able to use it properly with proper training?
Yes. Short answer, yes. But you also got to look at the liability, or I guess the risk, not the liability of you doing that, right? You get thrown into a situation where, say, there is, the cliche active shooter, and you're carrying, and you pull your gun out, and you go and you start chasing after that threat. Me coming on scene, I don't know who the fuck you are, right?
Right. And I
don't know who you are.
I just say preface, let's say home burglary versus like an active shooter. Active shooters, I think everybody should go through an active shooter class if they're going to put themselves in that position, just because, I have been in that environment, and you even have a firearm on your person when you're coming out, because you're getting patted down coming out of the environment. Like,
right.
You immediately go into cuffs because they don't know who you are and what's going on, and you could be just trying to hide and blend in.
Exactly. As far as like a home situation, or you just carrying to protect you and your family, I think absolutely. If you are capable of doing that, you need to do
that. What tools are being used right now that maybe a lot of people wouldn't think of by the criminals? You'd mentioned like WhatsApp, and I know Signal's a big one now. I see a lot of, the news trickling around. People are using like the Apple, what's the little Apple pods, or the little tracking
AirPods, or the AirTags.
AirTags. I hate to be the guy that says this, but I think a lot of that stuff is just conspiracy, honestly.
Oh, okay.
With the Apple Pods and things like that. Okay, for one, they're not going to just track you for your... it depends, I guess, on who's tracking you right now. If you got a crazy wife or husband, they might use that. But as far as criminals using them, I don't see why they would. Criminals are just creatures of opportunity, in my opinion. Career criminals.
They're just trying to find that open spot and exploit it.
Exactly. So they see that opportunity, they take it. They don't necessarily, pre-plan things.
What kind of tech and tools have you seen being utilized in your investigations?
By the criminals?
Yeah.
They use, obviously, especially now, right? Everybody has smartphones. They like to download police scanning apps, and they're not the best, but they're also not bad. There's quite a bit of delay, but they'll monitor those to see if, the police have been called in any area where they're at. They still use the primitive stuff, right? Slim Jims, lockpicks, things like that. But to be honest with you, most of the criminals we see, any burglaries and stuff like that, they're creatures of opportunity, meaning if there's a window or a door unlocked, they're going. And that's what people need to be realizing is lock your fucking doors and make sure your windows are closed. And guess what? Unfortunately, you got to have some lights on the outside of your house. If there's lighting and things like that, 9 times out of 10, they kind of avoid those areas when it comes to property crimes, right? Somebody's breaking into their house in the middle of the night, though. They're not there to steal your shit. I hope people realize that. Most property crimes, residential burglaries where they break in and steal that I've ever seen are during the day when people are at home or at work. Not in the middle of the night when you're sleeping there with your family. If somebody's there in the middle of the night breaking into your house, they're not there for your shit. They're there for you or to bring harm on you and your loved ones.
No, that's kind of a chilling cautionary tale.
That makes
true, 100%.
It makes sense. Why would you try and go into an environment where generally everybody's home, and why would I want to, if I'm trying to steal a TV, why would I want to try and worry about waking everybody up, unless if it's like some kind of stupid game that we're playing if you don't get caught.
They're not going to subject themselves to somewhere going into a home where they know somebody's going to be in and potentially armed, depending on your state, just for, your fucking computer or your TV or maybe your safe or cash, your wallet. They're not going in there for that shit in the middle of the night. They're going there to do you harm, and people need to know that. They want their shit, they're going to break in the middle of the day. And now, criminals are so brazen, they don't give a fuck if you have cameras, man. I can't think of how many burglaries I've been on, and even in the past month, where these fucking douchebags are just walking up, broad daylight. They'll look at the cameras. We had one guy flip the camera off. They don't fucking care. They don't give a shit.
Well,
and part of the reason is the judicial system's fucked, and they know they're going to get a slap on the wrist, and they'll be out the fucking back door within a few hours of getting booked in if they do get caught. That's if they get caught.
Well, yeah, that's a lot of what we're seeing right now with that guy who drove his SUV through that crowd. It was just one of those things where you get hemmed up, and the prosecutor's office says, yeah, no, like catch and release, man, like $5 bail, have fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's rough.
And that's not law enforcement,
right?
Fault. That is legitimately, that is the judges, the prosecutors.
Yeah, that's the system.
That's the system itself. Yeah. So as far as tech and things like that, with criminals, the majority of your criminals that do those property crimes, shit like that, they're drug addicts. They're not smart enough to, do anything more than maybe download a police app and have some burglary tools with it to break into shit.
Well, do you have any more like parting words for the John Hugh public listening at home?
Yeah. Like Mr. Frost was saying, if people are willing to carry and they want to protect themselves, I think law enforcement as a whole, especially the guys I work with, we all support it. And you should, because think about that. You can call us and we'll get there as soon as we can. But, in those types of situations, 2 minutes, 5 minutes is a long fucking time. So you just need to be prepared to handle it yourself until the cavalry arrives, and then we can clean up the mess.
All right. Well, Henry, brother, thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
You bet, man.
That was great. I'll let you go for now. But I'm going to be in touch with you here shortly. And every day on that calendar that ticks away, I keep thinking like, yeah, my buddy's going to get out and we're going to get into some wild stuff together because I got plans. So,
hey man, January 8th, I'll only have 5 more years left, and I can punch out.
Yeah, I'm going to make you grow that hair back out because you're such an attractive man.
I'm going to grow my hair back out. I'm not going to,
it's gonna be yeah.
All right, brother. Well, thanks again. I appreciate you.
Guys.
All right. Thank you.
Chad.
All right. Bye. That was Henry, everybody. And man,
I'm going to touch myself tonight.
Wow. Like
super cool. Like I enjoy hearing that point of view and to be able to stand back and go, okay, like I never saw anything like that kind of move when I was running around in the bars, but I could only imagine because I didn't see any kind of heavy hitter by any means, but I saw some dudes that were throwing some weight. And when you hear, oh, I got a styrofoam pack of 2 pounds of meth, like 2 pounds of meth is a lot of fucking meth. I don't know if any of you know that. Like
It's a lot of meth.
It's like a lot of goddamn meth. I mean, 2 pounds. 2 pounds. I mean, think about it. An 8-ball is it's an 8-ball. It's the size of an 8-ball.
What is that, an ounce?
Yeah, it's like an ounce.
Yeah. I don't know.
Equivalent to an ounce.
We dropped Henry too fast. We need
right.
we need measuring.
But I'm just saying, like, an 8-ball of meth is a lot of fucking meth.
Yeah.
An 8-ball of fucking coke is a lot of goddamn coke. I mean, unless if you're a heavy user, like, that's a lot of goddamn drugs.
Yeah. And just to have like polished off like the best burrito you've ever had or whatever he was eating and be like, wow, oh, that was delicious, man.
I
hey,
need one to
so
go.
You got that 2 pounds of meth?
right.
Oh yeah, man, right here. Take it, man.
Yeah.
It's in a styrofoam container for you already. Just put it in the bag.
Don't mix it up, man. It's wrapped up. Looks
it's
like a burrito in there.
It's not salt. Don't put that on your leftovers.
Yeah. That's wow.
Jeez. All right. Well, hey everybody. I mean, like we've been talking about, like, this is what we want to do, and if you like what we're doing, if you like how this is sounding, I need you guys to hit that like button, share it, push it, get 5-star reviews, type us up a paragraph, 5-6 sentences like, hey, I've been listening, they do this, whatever. Push that out and subscribe to our Patreon so that we've got the funding that we need. Like, Zoom calls are great. We're going to do a lot more of these, but I mean, we went to the Close Protection Conference this week with out there in Vegas with like the world's most elite executive protectors, bodyguards, drivers, business,
some serious pipe hitters,
like, and the stories that they have, locked inside their brains are just waiting to spill out over these microphones. So we need your help, and we appreciate all the support that we've had, thus far. But whatever you can do for us, like, let's make it happen. Our website, badguyforhire.com, like, go share that on your Facebook. Like, push our stuff out on Instagram. We're all over the place.
Please. I support you. You support me. You know what? Honestly, those of you that are, already friends with us on our Op4 page, reach out. Hashtag me, Mr. Frost, or whatever. If you have a podcast yourself that let me give it a listen. You're starting out, even if you got your veteran and have some really listening stuff, I'll take a listen to it.
Hell yeah.
I'll scratch your back. You scratch my back. Please, please, I'd be even happy to, just even, hey, go give these guys a listen on our podcast if you do the same for us.
Yeah. I mean, let's cross-pollinate this kind of stuff,
right?
Like, we want to engage all over the place.
Right. Even if you have a podcast that's about finances and things like that, like, I have a lot of friends in my world that are entrepreneurs. Like, they talk a lot about fitness. They talk a lot about selling things and how to do things and how to do business. And, I don't have a problem promoting your stuff, as you all know from the past. So if you can help promote me, I'll promote you.
100%. All right. Sit tight for a second. And for those that are supporting us, here's their stuff. All right, everyone, we're taking a brief moment to talk to you about one of our favorite sponsors. That's right. The Barber Collective is a Southern Utah mainstay, U.S. veteran owned, with an elite team of classically trained barbers for you to get that dapper do, professional fade, or a cut on the wild side. Competitive pricing with walk-ins available. You won't walk out disappointed that you tried The Barber Collective. Call today and schedule your appointment. Mention Oppositional Forces and receive your first cut on us. You can schedule online at vagaro.com/barberco. That's VAGARO.com/BARBERCO. Or call them at 435-922-8888. 8454. That's 435-922-8454. That's the Barber Collective. Don't let that do you wrong. Go see them today. Check out our friends at Smash Labs Rage Rooms, a Southern Utah exclusive with franchise options available. You won't find another adventure spot quite like this. 5 axe-throwing lanes with a variety of edge weapons and their special Rage Rooms, where you and your friends can work out the day's frustrations by smashing TVs, home appliances, and all kinds of glassware, big and small, and an ever-evolving range of ceramic and miscellaneous items sure to thrill the senses. Call them today and schedule your date night, special event, or even large private parties. Visit their website at www.smashlabs.biz and check out all their special pricing packages, or call 435-359-2214. That's 435-359-2214. Walk-ins welcome. That's Smash Labs Rage Rooms. Hey, thanks again, everybody. We're going to blow the door and get the hell out of here. Thank you for listening to Oppositional Forces, Wage War, and Stack Bodies.